So, at this point, and I am,
because
glad to have you here.
My name is Anaya.
My name is Travis, and
But he didn't say it as nice.
my name is Amir. I'm 12 years old.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Grip TV. I'm your host, Martin Davis. We're here today with a friend of mine, very close friend, associate. His name is Len Franks. Lenny, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Warren. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you, man. So we're going to get right into it, folks. Lenny, our first question for you, I guess, would be, what was life like for you growing up? What part of town did you live in? And just basically what schools you went to, and what was it like for you growing up as a child before drugs and alcohol?
Okay, before we begin, I would just like to say to you, Warren, that I have a saying that once you tell your story, then people know your glory.
Wow, that's good.
Right. A lot of people think they actually know me, but they don't. But today I'm here to explain to you how it was for me.
All right.
Okay. I was raised in North Philadelphia at 15th and Sydenham. Today it's a lot for Temple University. Mm-hmm. Around the time that I came up, when I was younger there, it was in the era of the Rizzo administration, and it was like gangs. Every corner that you go to, there was a gang, a different gang. Okay, at the time, when I was younger, I was going through a custody battle with my mother and father. My young life was like very hectic. I was like a very bad kid. I caused a lot of disruptions in school. And as I got older, the streets raised me. I mean, like I was saying, at the time there was many gangs around there. From every corner that you go to, there was a gang. And they impressed me. They helped raise me at the time. I was in trouble a lot, you know, at home with my mother and father. They was going through their issues and I was going through mine. But at the time, I couldn't relate. It was how I felt at the time. But you know, so all that stuff I held inside me, and I guess I built up a lot of rage. I remember back in North Philly, we moved, when I lived with my biological mother, we moved like so many times. I mean, there's so many areas. I went to different schools. Actually, I went to 3 different high schools. I went to Vaux Junior High for the 8th grade, for the 7th grade. For the 8th grade, I went to Strawberry Mansion, and then I was transferred to Demmer Beaver Junior High in Winfield. At the time, my father had got custody of us, and he moved us to Winfield. At the time, he had a store in North Philadelphia, and I was raised up actually in the store, manning the store for him. When we got to Winfield, I didn't like it because Winfield didn't have the hustle and bustle of North Philly. It didn't have the bars on every corner, you know. So every day after I worked in the store, I would just go to Winfield just to go to sleep, you know, because I like the guys hanging on the neighborhood, you know, on the corners and stuff like that. That was attractive to me. As I got a little older, as I went through these 3 different high schools, and every high school was located in a different gang, a different gang. So I really had to learn how to fight. During this period of my life, right, fighting was the thing for me to do. You know, actually I thought I would be a fighter.
So this, let me ask you a question then. So fighting was a thing for you to do, but drugs and alcohol wasn't in the picture yet, still?
No, at the time I knew nothing about drugs nor alcohol. I never experimented with drugs or alcohol.
So did you graduate?
I graduated from each school. I graduated from Vaux over to Strawberry Mansion, and then I went to Bieber. When I went to Bieber, like I told you, I didn't like Winfield at all, but I went to Bieber and I got a cultural shock because there were white kids there. And in North Philly, I never experienced that, you know, so I was kind of like shy. You know, I couldn't be myself, but my parents wanted me to graduate. I did graduate from Bieber, and as I went to Bieber, I went to Overbrook Junior High. Now, at Overbrook, my main thing was playing basketball. I went to school every day, you know, but I never would go to class. They had a little gym down at Overbrook for the people that know Overbrook, right? I used to go down to that little gym and I used to play ball all day because if you won, you got to play with the next team. So I was down there all day.
Okay, so the next question I want to ask though, Len, is so how did drugs and alcohol come into play in your life, you know, and what was it like for you, you know, getting high and stuff, and just what was your life like, man, after you hit the streets?
Okay, during the period, I guess around 15, I would just hang out with some of the guys that lived around Burke Street, and we would drink wine. You know, I would drink wine, and I would still work at the stores. My father had a store on the 54th and Burke's. But at the time, I still felt that I was missing something because most of the time I worked in the store. I always thought myself as an athlete. You know, I used to play ball all the time. You know, I used to fight. But at the time, you know, it was constantly working at that store. I think that became the problem of me and my father coming to a head. And he put me out and me living with the Garys. But living with the Garys, it was hard because I was like on my own. You know, I was only 15 years old. I didn't know anything about life. So I did a lot of what the other people thought that I was supposed to do. My first experiment with drugs, it was an incident that we played in the summer league. We played basketball, and during that summer, our team was undefeated, and we was going for the championship. And we happened to go for the championship game, and once we got there, they brought 35 and 40-year-old guys to play us in the championship, and we lost. I was like real downhearted about the whole thing. So I went back up to the old neighborhood and ran into some associates that I thought were my friends at the time. And they was asking me what was wrong with me, and I was telling them. They said, well, young buck, we got something for you. You know, help you forget about all that.
About the game.
About the game,
yeah.
Right. Forget everything about the game. So they took me in the basement, and they roll up my sleeves. Now, at this time, I knew nothing about drugs. All I was relying on is that my friends, what I thought was my friends, was telling me I would forget about my pain about the game. The first drug was heroin. They injected heroin into me, and I just kept telling them to pull it out, but they never did. Immediately after, I threw up ungodly. I just threw up big gobs of, and I say maybe a half an hour later, I just felt this calmness about me, right? And I think for the next 17 years, my whole life surrounded getting, using, and trying to find that feeling again.
So you became a heroin addict instantly?
I became a heroin addict instantly. Now, being that I worked at my family's store, I was privileged to cash, and I could take care of the habit that I had. Little did I know, I didn't know anything about a habit. But soon later, I found out every day that I wouldn't feel the same unless I go out and get some heroin. And I say within 6 months or so, I finally figured out that I had a habit.
6 months later?
6 months later. Like I said, my whole life surrounded stealing, burglaries. Now I'm taking my shots at the penitentiary. I was locked up when I was 17, and I started using heroin when I was 17. So this all led to that. But the next years of my life was jails and drugs and stealing.
So let me ask you a question. Did you have multiple, well, before we even get into that, let me ask you, did you have multiple sites where you shot up at? Like, do you keep shooting in the same place? Or do you have to keep finding new veins and stuff?
Actually, you would have to find new veins to shoot in, like, every time. But being a heroin addict and wanting to have that fix, if you knew there was a vein, right, that you had used before, that's where you was going. So I started to build up abscesses, like in my arms and my legs. And still to today, I have a problem when I go to the hospital getting blood. Because my veins has never actually come back, they have collapsed.
So it presented a medical problem for you.
A medical problem.
A homeless problem.
Yes.
A jail problem.
Right. I had
and just your head always banging, trying to live. Next question. Did you have multiple attempts
yes.
to get clean? How many, like, you go to a lot of rehabs, detoxes, and all that kind of stuff?
Right.
And why you think mostly that you had to have so many times, try so many times?
Because you know what? Honestly, I didn't want to stop. I just wanted to stop for the temporary period that I was feeling bad. Like I would check in the detoxes, and once the detox was over in 14 days, I went out, and at the time I was on welfare. And once I got my check, I was off to the races. And once the check ran out, I'm back in the detox for another 14 days. I think I did that maybe for a couple of years. I think I was in every detox in Philadelphia. I finally realized, I think it was after going to the penitentiary and talking with other people, I finally realized that I had a real serious problem. I think the year was 1979.
At this point, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a commercial, and we're going to come back with more from Len Franks. Stay tuned.
My name is Janiyah and I am 12 years old. I wanted to be a doctor or lawyer when I grew up. It will take hard work and dedication to achieve my dreams and goals. I cannot afford to be an alcoholic or drug addict when I grew up, and I would just ruin everything.
Addiction, alcoholism, incurable diseases. In the end, your dreams, your plans, maybe even your life, over. Stop it before it starts. This message brought to you by GRIP TV's Youth Drug Abuse Awareness Project. Welcome back to GRIP TV. We're still here with Len Franks. He's told us a lot about himself, what his childhood was like, what the addiction was like. Now we're going to hear some of the positive stuff from Lenny about how he turned his life around. Len, tell us about your last high, what that was like, what made you finally decide that no more multiple attempts at getting high, this is going to be it. Let us know what happened there and how you made that change.
Okay, I can remember this like it was yesterday. It was December 1987. I went to my mother's house to see her, and she came to the door and told me she no longer could talk to me, that she put me on the altar and that God would have to deal with me. I left that place, I left her house crying. I mean, because my mother was the only one I had at the time. She was the only person I had who was on my side. And wow. I cried. It was raining. I can remember the night. It was raining, and I cried, and I left her house on 25th and Lehigh, and I walked to this program all the way at Brewer and Girard, crying, asking for help. Asking for help. I gets to the program, and the guy told me he didn't have any beds. And I begged him to let me stay at that program for that night. He let me stay that night, and the next day, I start going to meetings. And I knew that I couldn't recover in Philadelphia, so I actually moved to Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Once I got to Williamsport, I seen people doing things, accomplishing things, living life on life's terms, but I wanted to know how they did it. I got a sponsor, and I didn't know this guy from a can of paint, but he told me, once he shared, it seemed like he shared my story and was looking right at me. And I actually walked up to this guy and asked him to sponsor me. And he asked me, will I let him? Little did I know, at the time I hated this guy because he made me read the basic text, front to back. He made me go to meetings. He suggested that I go to meetings for like the first 4 years. I didn't work or nothing. And while I was there, I followed his directions because I wanted everything that he had. He had respect from the people, he glowed, he spoke well once we went to meetings, and I wanted that. But I didn't know that it would come to you a day at a time if you follow directions. While I was there, it was this building down in Williamsport, and it said OVR, and I was always interested in finding out what this building was. So I went to the building, and some white people told me that they help people in school, help people go to school that had disabilities and problems. So I told them about my drug addiction, and they told me, you know, to get some paperwork from my therapist, and they would hook me up.
Okay.
So now, I always wanted to go back to school because I had lied for so long to tell people that I had graduated from Overbrook High, and I never graduated. I went to the 11th grade, and that's when my father signed me out. So going back to school was really interesting to me because now I had the time and I was clean. I went to Williamsport Community College. It's now named Penn College. And during the first semester, I made the dean's list.
Wow.
Okay. Actually, I was the first black person to ever graduate from Penn College or Williamsport Community College in 1990.
Wow, that's an accomplishment in itself.
And at that point, I got a degree in human services.
And what type of degree was that?
It was an associate degree.
Associate degree.
But that wasn't enough for me. You know, I had put so much time into this addiction, right? Now I need to put a lot of time into me. So I came back to Philadelphia. And I transferred into Temple University.
Wow.
And I was trying to get a bachelor's in social work. I struggled through that. I finally got through, and I got my bachelor's in social work.
Wow. Wow.
But along the lines, it was not just the accomplishments of the bachelor's degree and associate's degree. It was the respect I was getting from my people, my friends that really knew me, you know, and feeling okay within me. At that time, I put in an application to work at the Philadelphia prison system. I don't know why I did that, as much as I stayed in the Philadelphia prison system.
But they probably were saying, well, you might as well work here.
And so at the interview process, I comes in with my suit on, looking good. And, you know, at that point, I learned how to talk to people. Not the drug talk, not the corner talk,
Right.
you know. And I was given a job. But at first, I seen the people looking at my record, and they was pulling back pages, looking at my record. And as I noticed that, I jumped up and explained to the people who best to tell these guys about addiction than somebody that's been through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And they told me, well, we'll call you back. So I left there kind of downhearted, thinking I would never get in. But they called me back in 3 days. And they told me that you had the position.
Wow. That's powerful.
And they actually put me at the same jail where I used to do most of my time. So, you know, I got flashbacks. But while I was there, they gave me the opportunity to go on and get my master's degree in criminal justice. I went to St. Joe's, and I got my master's degree from St. Joe's in 2003.
Wow, and that's in criminal justice?
In criminal justice. And at that time, I was promoted to social work supervisor.
What, does heroin make you super smart?
I was always smart, right? I was always smart. That's why I think I survived in my addiction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and once I did that, I stayed in the prison system for like 14 years. I enjoyed it because it was a way of me keeping myself clean. Because every day I would have to go to work and talk to other guys, and inmates can tell if you bull's crapping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they can tell it. You know, so I kind of enjoyed that, but I had to retire due to a disability.
Okay. So let me ask you about God. What role does God play in your life? And did God play any role in your recovery at that point?
Yes, God played a very important role. Up until that time, you know, I used to always go to church with my mother. You know how when you were a child and your mother dragged you off to church.
Right.
But that was the end of it. But during this addiction, I had to find a power greater than myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know I couldn't do this. I tried it. I tried it in 79. I tried it in 82. And I wanted to give it a last shot in 87. And so I had to find somebody that was greater than me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always thought I was the greatest. And once I learned about a power greater than myself, I had to pray to that power and sit back and wait for the responses, if any. The power greater than myself were my sponsors, you know, the peoples in the rooms that told me how to live life on life's terms. I never actually lived life on life's terms. And that's what I did. You know, he followed me for 27 years. I never gave up on him. You know, I actually just discovered him maybe after 17, but he never gave up on me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so still to the day, I follow his directions. You know, I may fall short on days, what they call addictive behaviors.
Yeah.
You know, we all had those.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I fall short. But basically, you know, I try not to lie. I try not to steal. You know, anything that would lead me back to my addiction.
Right.
You know, and I know for sure that God has kept me here because He has a purpose for me.
Is Jesus Christ your higher power?
Jesus Christ is my higher power.
I would like for you to maybe talk to some of the still suffering addicts, those that are still sick and suffering. I want you to talk right into the camera, and if they're watching, why don't you give back something to them? Let them know what they can do right now if they're in a spot where you were when you had your last high.
Okay. To the people that's still sick and suffering, I say to you that you first have to admit that you have a problem. I went for years not trying to admit that I had a problem. That's step one. Once you admit you have a problem and you seek help, it's there for you. You know, you can do this. It's not easy. I'm gonna tell you, the life that I live today is not easy. Not, you know, but God is taking the steering wheel. Your first step is admitting you have a problem and getting some help. You know, you have to put your ego aside and admit that you have a problem. And once you admit that you have a problem, there is places and people that will help you.
Amen. We want to thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you. I know we couldn't go into everything. We couldn't go on and on and on because I know we could probably sit here and talk for a couple of months. Yeah. But due to our time constraints and whatnot, we're going to stop here and just thank you very much, man, for coming on the show. We appreciate you.
Hey, I thank for the opportunity, man, just to share that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so with that, folks, you've watched another edition of Grip TV, Real People,